The research facility nestled in the mountains of Colorado wasn't much to look at, just another collection of bland concrete buildings and security checkpoints. But within its walls, Dr. Sarah Chen was about to make history, even if she didn't know it yet. She stood before the ancient vault, her breath creating small clouds in the climate control chamber. The metallic surface before her was covered in symbols that seemed to shift and dance in the harsh laboratory lights. This was humanity's first major xenorchaeological find, a structure that predated known galactic civilization by at least 1,000,000 years. Recording log entry 47. Sarah spoke into her datapad. The vault's surface continues to display unusual properties. The symbols appear to be some form of quantum lock script, changing based on the observer's position, and possibly their intent. She paused, watching as the patterns rippled like water. The material itself remains impervious to all standard scanning techniques. Behind her, Dr. James Martinez adjusted the settings on a complex array of sensors. Sarah, you should see these readings. The energy signature is unlike anything in our database. It doesn't match any known civilization's technology. The Arxer ambassador warned us not to open it, Sarah mused, running her fingers along the cool surface. Actually, every single alien species we've contacted has warned us to leave it alone. But they won't tell us why. James snorted. When has that ever stopped humanity? Besides, they all act like we're barely evolved primates anyway. No offense to our actual primate cousins. Sarah smiled despite herself. It was true. In the 50 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, they'd been treated like children who had somehow stumbled onto the cosmic stage too early. The older species seemed to alternate between patronizing humanity and being utterly baffled by them. Energy levels are holding steady, James reported. The quantum resonance matrix is aligned. We're ready for the first attempt at interfacing with the locking mechanism. Sarah took a deep breath. They'd spent months developing this technique, using quantum entanglement to essentially speak to the vault's security systems in its own language. Either it would work, or, well, every alien species they'd asked had been very clear that attempting to open the vault would be catastrophic. Initiating quantum handshake, she announced, activating the device they'd built. It looked deceptively simple, a crystalline lattice suspended in a magnetic field. But its internal structure was as complex as a planet's ecosystem. The symbols on the vault's surface began to move faster, swirling like a whirlpool of light. A low hum filled the chamber, more felt than heard, vibrating in their bones. Quantum coherence at 67% and rising. James called out, "Whatever's in there, it's responding." Sarah watched in fascination as the symbols began to align themselves into new patterns. It's testing us, running us through some kind of verification protocol. The hum increased in intensity. Warning lights began flashing on their monitoring equipment. Coherence at 89%. James shouted over the noise, "Sarah, these energy readings are off the scale." The symbols suddenly froze in place, forming a pattern that burned itself into Sarah's mind. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a message written in the language of reality itself. "We're past the point of no return," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Complete the sequence." The crystalline device pulsed once, twice, and then shattered into 1,000,000 glittering pieces. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vault began to open. It didn't split along any visible seam. Instead, the entire surface seemed to fold in on itself, like a flower blooming in reverse. The air filled with the scent of ozone, and something else, something alien and ancient. "By all that's holy," James whispered. Inside the vault was a single chamber, its walls lined with containers of various sizes. Each one held a liquid that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But it was the writing on the containers that made Sarah's blood run cold. "James," she said, "are you seeing this? The symbols, they're not just similar to the quantum script we've been studying. They're identical to the warning markers used by every major galactic civilization to denote weapons of mass destruction." But that's impossible, James protested. Those civilizations evolved independently, thousands of years apart. They shouldn't share any common symbolic language unless they all got it from the same source. Sarah finished. This vault, these weapons, they're what shaped galactic civilization as we know it. She approached one of the smaller containers, about the size of a coffee mug. The liquid inside was completely black, yet somehow seemed to glow with an inner light. "We should call the Oversight Committee," James said. "This is way above our clearance level." Sarah barely heard him. She was transfixed by the container in front of her. The symbols on it were shifting again, but this time they were forming into patterns she could almost understand. It was as if the vault wasn't just responding to them. It was trying to communicate. "Sarah," James called out, worry clear in his voice. "Step back from there. We don't know what." The container suddenly changed color, the black liquid inside turning to a deep, pulsing blue. A section of its surface became transparent, revealing what looked like a simple interface. "It wants us to make a choice," Sarah realized. All those warnings from the alien species, they weren't about the vault being dangerous. They were afraid of what humanity might choose to do with what's inside. She reached out toward the interface, her hand steady. "Sarah, don't." James moved to stop her, but he was too late. Her finger touched the surface of the container. There was a soft chime, and the liquid inside began to move of its own accord, forming complex patterns that reminded Sarah of DNA helixes and molecular structures. "What did you do?" James asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah watched in amazement as the patterns continued to evolve and change. "I didn't do anything. It's analyzing us, reading our genetic structure, our neural patterns, maybe even our entire species history." The liquid suddenly stopped moving. The container's surface displayed new symbols, not warnings this time, but something else entirely. "James," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder, "I don't think these are weapons at all. At least, that's not their primary purpose. They're tools. Tools left behind by whatever civilization built this vault. Tools that can only be used by species that have evolved to a certain point. And you think we've reached that point?" Before Sarah could answer, the container opened with a soft hiss. The blue liquid inside remained perfectly still, defying gravity. "I think," Sarah said, "we're about to find out what all those alien species were really afraid of." She looked at the liquid that had haunted galactic nightmares for millions of years and made a decision that would change humanity forever. "Let's find out what humanity is really capable of." The Galactic Council's emergency session was chaos. Representatives from over 300 species filled the vast chamber, their voices rising in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and translated speech. At the center of the storm stood Ambassador Xylith of the Arxer, their crystalline form pulsing with waves of deep red, a sign of extreme agitation. "The humans have violated the most sacred prohibition." Xylith's translated voice boomed across the chamber. "They have breached the Vault of Shadows and accessed the legacy compounds." High above in the observation gallery, humanity's representative, Ambassador Marcus Wong, maintained a careful neutral expression. Beside him, Dr. Sarah Chen shifted uncomfortably in her formal dress uniform, adorned with the newly created Legacy Research Division insignia. "They don't understand what's happening," Sarah whispered. "The compounds, they're not what anyone thought they were." Marcus nodded slightly. "Try telling them that. Look at them. Thousands of years of civilization, and they're still paralyzed by fear of something they never bothered to understand." Below, the Arxer ambassador continued their tirade. "For millions of years, every spacefaring species has heeded the warnings. We all recognize the danger. But humans, in their arrogance, in their reckless." "Point of order." A new voice cut through the chaos. The Zinthari representative, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, moved forward. "Perhaps we should hear from the humans themselves. After all, They have achieved what none of us dared. They have survived contact with the legacy compounds. Sarah felt Marcus tense beside her. This was the moment they'd prepared for. He stood, his voice clear and strong as it carried across the chamber. Esteemed members of the council, we thank you for this opportunity to speak. Marcus's words were measured, diplomatic. Yes, we accessed the vault. Yes, we investigated the compounds. But what we found wasn't a weapon. It was a gift. A test, left behind by those who came before. The chamber erupted again, but Marcus pressed on. Dr. Chen, our lead researcher, will explain. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. The eyes of the galaxy were upon her, but she thought of her lab back on Earth, of what they'd discovered in those first crucial days after accessing the vault. The compounds are not destructive agents, she began. They are adaptive molecular systems designed to interface with compatible biological organisms. They don't destroy. They transform. They enhance, but only if the receiving species has evolved certain specific characteristics. She activated a holographic display, showing the molecular structure of the compound. We've discovered that human DNA has unique properties that allow for stable integration with the compound. It doesn't break down our cellular structure. It enhances it, improving everything from neural processing to cellular regeneration. Lies. Sylith interrupted. We have seen the compounds reduce entire worlds to primordial soup. They are planet killers, nothing more. Because your biology rejected them. Sarah countered. The compounds attempt to integrate with any living tissue they contact. If the integration fails, the result is catastrophic. But if it succeeds, she gestured, and new images appeared. Human test subjects demonstrating enhanced abilities, accelerated healing, increased cognitive function. This is impossible. A Meridian observer chittered. Our records show the compounds. Your records are based on fear and assumption. Marcus cut in. For millions of years, every species that found a vault simply sealed it away, warned others, and tried to forget. None of you ever attempted to understand what you found. The Zintheri representative moved closer, their energy form flickering with interest. And you believe humans are somehow compatible with these ancient tools. We don't just believe it, Sarah said. We've proven it. The compounds are changing us, yes, but not into monsters. They're helping us reach our full potential. And we think this is exactly what they were designed to do. The chamber fell silent as she continued. The vault's quantum interface communicated with us. It showed us glimpses of its creators, beings of such advanced evolution that they transcended physical form itself. Before they departed this galaxy, they left behind these tools, these tests, waiting for species that might be ready to follow their path. And you believe humans are worthy of such power. Tylith's tone was scathing. You, who have barely mastered interstellar travel. Marcus stepped forward again. We believe we have the right to try, to learn, to grow. And we believe that right extends to any species willing to move past their fear and truly understand what the vaults contain. Suddenly, emergency signals blared throughout the chamber. A junior Arxer aide rushed to Sylith, transmitting data directly to their crystalline form. The ambassador's color shifted to deep black, a sign of total shock. This is impossible, Sylith whispered, but their translated voice carried in the sudden silence. We're receiving reports from multiple sectors. More vaults. They're activating. All across the galaxy, the quantum seals are disengaging. They're responding to the human success. Sarah felt a smile tugging at her lips. We thought that might happen. The vaults are networked. They've been waiting all this time for a species to pass the first test. To prove that evolution doesn't have to be guided by fear. Marcus addressed the stunned council. The choice before you was simple. Continue to fear what you don't understand, or work with humanity to unlock the true potential these vaults represent. We extend an open hand of cooperation to any species willing to join us in this journey of discovery. The chamber erupted into chaos once more, But this time it was different. Fear was giving way to curiosity, to possibility. Sarah watched as representatives huddled together, their universal translators working overtime as they debated this unprecedented situation. "Think they'll take the offer?" she whispered to Marcus. He smiled. "Some will, some won't. But that's not what matters. What matters is that humanity just changed the rules of the game. We're not asking for permission to join their galactic community anymore. We're inviting them to join us in creating a new one," Sarah finished. Above them, through the council chamber's transparent dome, the galaxy sparkled with possibility. Somewhere out there, more vaults were awakening, waiting to be understood rather than feared. Humanity had taken its first steps on a path that would reshape not just their own destiny, but the destiny of all intelligent life. The warning had become an invitation, and the future was transforming before their eyes. 6 months after the council meeting, New Shanghai hummed with an energy that had nothing to do with its fusion reactors. Through the sprawling megalopolis's transparent skyways, enhanced humans moved alongside their unmodified counterparts, their presence a testament to how quickly society had adapted to the changes. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her new laboratory, watching a holographic display of global transformation statistics. The data told a story that still amazed her. 30% of Earth's population had now successfully integrated with the legacy compounds, with another million joining their ranks each day. Dr. Chen, her assistant, Maya Patel, entered the lab. Unlike Sarah, Maya had chosen to remain unmodified, representing the significant portion of humanity that preferred to remain in their natural state. The latest results from the Antarctic Research Station are in. Sarah examined the data with her enhanced perception, processing complex patterns in seconds. Remarkable. The compounds aren't just changing individual humans, they're adapting based on collective human needs and aspirations. The Antarctic Station had discovered that enhanced humans were developing unique abilities based on their work and passions. Scientists found their brains could process complex calculations instinctively. Artists perceived colors beyond normal human vision. Engineers intuitively understood the fundamental forces of physics. "There's more," Maya said, bringing up another report. "The orbital hospitals are reporting 0 rejection rates now. The compounds have evolved to be completely compatible with all human genetic variations." Sarah nodded, remembering those first tense weeks when they'd had to carefully screen candidates for genetic compatibility. Now the compounds themselves had solved that problem, adapting to accommodate human diversity. A quiet chime announced an incoming priority communication. The lab's holoscreen activated, showing Marcus Wong's face. The ambassador looked tired but excited. "Sarah, are you seeing the news from the Centauri colonies?" She hadn't, but a quick neural interface check brought her up to speed. "The terraforming project. It's working at 10 times the projected speed." Marcus nodded. "Enhanced terraforming teams are reshaping entire planets in months instead of decades. But that's not why I'm calling. The Xanthari have made their decision. They want to attempt compound integration." Sarah felt her heart race. This was what they'd been working toward. Proof that the compounds could adapt to non-human biology. "When?" "They're already here. I'm sending them to your lab." "Sarah, this could change everything." After the call ended, Sarah turned to Maya. "Prep the integration chamber, and get me everything we have on Xanthari biology." Hours later, Sarah stood before the Xanthari delegation. Their energy forms pulsed with patterns she now recognized as excitement and apprehension. "You understand the risks?" she asked their lead researcher, whose name translated as Seeker of Hidden Truths. "We understand that fear has held our species back for too long," Seeker replied. "We've spent millennia containing our consciousness in these suits, afraid to evolve. Watching humanity's transformation has shown us another way." The integration process was unlike anything they'd attempted with humans. The compounds had to be modified to interface with pure energy instead of organic matter. For 3 tense hours, Sarah and her team worked alongside Xanthari scientists, making minute adjustments as the compounds attempted to bridge the gap between matter and energy. When success came, it was breathtaking. The Xinthary's energy forms began to pulse with new colors, their consciousness expanding beyond their containment suits. They could now interact directly with physical matter, shaping it with thought alone. "This is just the beginning," Seeker announced, their voice resonating with newfound depth. "Other species will follow when they see what's possible." And they did. Over the next few months, delegations from dozens of species arrived on Earth. Each successful integration revealed new possibilities, new ways of transcending biological limitations. The compounds adapted to each species differently, enhancing their natural strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. But not everyone embraced the change. The Arxer and their allies maintained their stance that the compounds were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They began withdrawing from shared space, fortifying their borders. "Let them hide," Marcus told Sarah during one of their regular briefings. "Humanity's role isn't to force change, but to show what's possible when you embrace it." Sarah watched through her lab window as a group of enhanced humans demonstrated their abilities to a delegation of curious aliens. One researcher was manipulating quantum fields with her bare hands, while another communicated complex mathematical concepts through pure thought. "We're not just changing ourselves," she realized. "We're changing the very definition of what's possible. Every species that joins us brings new perspectives, new potential." The compounds had awakened something that had lain dormant in the galaxy for millions of years: the courage to evolve, to transcend limitations, to reach for something greater. Humanity had taken the first step, but they were no longer walking the path alone. The transformation wasn't just physical or mental, it was cultural, spiritual, reaching into the very foundations of civilization itself. And somewhere out there, Sarah knew, the ancient beings who had left behind these gifts were watching, waiting to see what their inheritors would become. The galaxy was transforming, one species at a time, and humanity was leading the way into an unknown but brilliant future. The attack came without warning. Across human space, Arxer warships emerged from hyperspace, their crystalline hulls glowing with weapons powered by the fear of a dozen resistant species. Their target wasn't just humanity, but every species that had embraced the legacy compounds. Admiral Helena Santos stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Horizon, watching as the tactical display filled with enemy signatures. Her enhanced mind processed the battlefield in microseconds, calculating probabilities and outcomes faster than any computer. "They're targeting integration centers first," her XO reported. New Shanghai, Armstrong Base, the Centauri colonies, all under heavy fire. Helena's enhanced vision zoomed in on the tactical feeds. The Arxer fleet moved with devastating precision, employing weapons specifically designed to disrupt the molecular structure of enhanced beings. They'd been planning this for months. "Send word to all allied species," Helena ordered. "Initiate Protocol Sanctuary." She paused, watching as civilian ships began emergency jumps to predetermined safe zones. "And get me Dr. Chen." Sarah's hologram appeared on the bridge, her lab visible behind her. "Admiral, the Arxer weapons. They're using corrupted versions of the compounds against us. They've weaponized their own fear. Can we counter it?" "Already working on it. The compounds in our systems are adapting. But we need time." Time was the one thing they didn't have. The Arxer fleet was vast, representing the combined might of every species that rejected transformation. Their ships darkened the skies above Earth's major cities, a show of force meant to terrify. But humanity had moved beyond fear. All ships, all enhanced personnel. Helena broadcast across the neural network that connected transformed humans. "Remember your training. Remember who we are." The response was immediate and unprecedented. Enhanced humans across the system began coordinating at levels impossible for their attackers to comprehend. Scientists interfaced directly with their ship systems, optimizing them beyond design specifications. Engineers reformed hull plating at the molecular level, strengthening defenses. And then humanity revealed what the compounds had truly given them: not just physical or mental enhancement, but a deeper understanding of the universe itself. When the Arxer opened fire, their weapons met shields of pure thought, barriers created by enhanced humans working in perfect concert with their transformed alien allies. The corrupted compounds were contained, analyzed, and transformed. Message from the Zintheri fleet, Helena's XO announced. They've synchronized their energy forms with our defense network. The Meridian Swarm is joining too. Helena smiled. This was what the attackers had never understood. The compounds didn't just enhance individuals, they created connections, understanding, unity. Admiral, Sarah's hologram flickered with excitement. We've cracked it. The compounds in our systems, they're not just defending against the weapons. They're reaching out to them, trying to stabilize the corruption. You mean, the Arxer didn't just weaponize the compounds, they exposed their entire fleet to them. And now, across the battlefield, Arxer ships began to pulse with new energy signatures. Their corrupted compounds were responding to the pure versions carried by enhanced beings, trying to fulfill their original purpose, not to destroy, but to transform. Open a channel to the Arxer fleet, Helena ordered. All frequencies. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of humanity's newfound wisdom. You came here expecting to find monsters, beings corrupted by power you don't understand. Instead, you'll find only friends, waiting to help you overcome your fear. The battle paused as her words reached the enemy fleet. Helena could almost feel their confusion, their struggle between generations of fear and the undeniable evidence before them. Your weapons are built from the same source as our gifts, she continued. They remember their true purpose. Let them guide you. Let us help you understand what you've been running from for so long. On the tactical display, the first Arxer ship powered down its weapons. Then another, and another. The compounds they'd corrupted were reverting, reaching for their original purpose, calling out to their pure counterparts. They're requesting integration protocols, Sarah reported, her voice filled with wonder. Not just the Arxer, all of them. Their weapons showed them what we've been trying to tell them. The compounds don't want to destroy. They want to connect. Helena watched as former enemy ships began docking with human stations, their crews choosing transformation over conflict. What had begun as an attack was becoming the largest mass integration event since the compounds were discovered. Dr. Chen, Helena said, I think you're about to be very busy. Sarah's hologram smiled. We all are. This isn't just a victory, Admiral. This is a tipping point. The last major opposition to transformation just experienced exactly what they feared most, and found out it was what they needed all along. The stars seemed brighter somehow as Helena looked out at the ships that had come to destroy them, and were now joining them instead. Humanity had faced its first major test since transformation, and they had responded not with violence, but with understanding. The response to fear wasn't force, it was enlightenment. And now, as former enemies became new allies, the true power of the legacy compounds was finally becoming clear. They weren't weapons or tools or even enhancements. They were bridges connecting all sentient life to its true potential. 1 year after the failed Arxer attack, the Great Hall of the Legacy Research Institute buzzed with an energy that transcended species. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at its center, surrounded by representatives from over 1,000 transformed civilizations. Through their shared enhancement, she could feel their collective anticipation. The patterns were always there, she explained, manipulating the massive hologram that filled the chamber. In every vault, every compound, every quantum signature. We just needed enough perspectives to see the whole picture. The hologram showed an intricate web of connections between all known legacy vaults, forming a pattern that spanned the galaxy. Each point pulsed with the unique signatures of the species that had embraced transformation. Ambassador Marcus Wong, now serving as humanity's representative to the new transformed council, stepped forward. His enhanced form shimmered slightly, a sign of his excitement. Show them what we found, Sarah. She nodded, expanding the hologram. The vaults aren't just repositories. They're nodes in a vast network, a gateway left behind by the precursors. And now that we've reached critical mass in transformations, now that enough species have embraced change instead of fear, it's activating. Former Arxur ambassador Xylith, their crystalline form now gorgeously transformed by successful integration, moved closer to examine the pattern. The compounds were never the end goal, were they? They were preparation. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. They helped us evolve to a point where we could perceive and interact with higher dimensions of reality. But that was just the beginning. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show new data, readings from transformed beings across the galaxy. Their enhanced abilities weren't just growing. They were converging, reaching toward something greater. The precursors didn't ascend or go extinct, Sarah explained. They evolved beyond our understanding of existence itself, and they left behind everything we'd need to follow them. Through their shared enhancement, every being in the room could feel the truth of her words. The compounds had given them more than power. They'd given them purpose. Already, we're seeing the effects, Marcus added. Enhanced beings working together can reshape planets, create new elements, even manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. But there's more waiting for us. Much more. Sarah activated the final simulation, a representation of what their combined data suggested was possible. The network is building toward a critical threshold. When enough transformed beings reach the next stage of evolution, the gateway will open. We'll have the chance to meet those who came before, to understand why they left these gifts behind. And you believe humanity should lead this endeavor? Asked a Meridian observer, their swarm form swirling with curious patterns. Marcus smiled. No, we believe we should all reach for it together. Humanity's gift wasn't immunity to the compound's negative effects. It was the courage to try understanding them in the first place. Now that courage belongs to all of us. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. Through their enhanced connection, Sarah could feel the collective will of 1,000 species united in purpose. Fear had kept them separate for millions of years. Understanding had brought them together. The revolution isn't just in our bodies or minds, she said. It's in how we see ourselves, our place in the universe. We're not just separate species anymore. We're the next step in cosmic evolution. As if in response to her words, the holographic network pulsed with new energy. Across the galaxy, transformed beings felt a call, a signal that had waited eons to be heard. It's starting, Sarah whispered, but everyone in the room heard her through their connection. The gateway is responding to our collective advancement. They watched in awe as new patterns emerged in the hologram, showing paths between dimensions, bridges to realities they were only now becoming able to perceive. The precursor's final gift was unveiling itself, not just tools for transformation, but a map to follow them into a new stage of existence. Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of history. A year ago, humanity faced extinction because others feared what we might become. Today, we all stand together at the threshold of what we were always meant to be. Sarah felt it then, not just the connection to everyone in the room, but to all transformed beings across the galaxy. Their shared consciousness reached toward something vast and beautiful, something that transcended physical form and individual identity. The compounds weren't weapons, she said. They weren't even tools. They were keys, waiting for beings wise enough to stop fearing change and start embracing transformation. The hologram's light bathed them all in its glow as the gateway network continued to activate. Above them, through the Institute's transparent dome, the galaxy seemed to shimmer with new possibility. Humanity had started this journey alone, armed with nothing but curiosity and courage. They would finish it together with 1,000 allies, reaching for a future that even their enhanced minds could barely comprehend. The revolution wasn't just in what they had become. It was in what they would become next. Together. The age of fear was over. The age of transformation had begun.